Mic check. Yo, yo, drop it down in the comments where you're from. We're about to have a good time today. All right. Let's go. Let's get it. It is time to check out the news. So that's what we're going to do first, like we always do. How's everybody doing? My name is Peyton Pilgrim. They call me Patey Pips. I've been trading Forex for about 5 years now, been profitable for just over 3, started getting consistent with it around that 2-3 year, right? And then just last year, I became a $100,000 funded trader with FTMO. So we're on our road to building more capital with them, creating little lower time frame strategies to help people pass these challenges, and really just sticking to these technical analysis, and just really having a good time with the people in Next Wave. Shout out to everyone in Next Wave, Carlo. Shout out to Cole, who is really doing his thing out there. Shout out Cole for creating that bot, man. I guess not creating it, but finding that bot and really being able to utilize that automated trading. Shout out to him for that. We're really looking forward to what he's doing in his manual trading. So if y'all haven't, y'all need to go check out his manual trading as well, on his Wyckoff, whatever it's called channel. Right. And then, so yeah, let me get this actually. Let me make sure that I can toggle this out, I believe, pop out this chat. I'll bring the chat down here and let's get into it. So news this week, fundamental analysis, we like to check it out real quick. We don't really play off of it too much, but it looks like the main thing this week is going to be the quarter GDP for the US, and they are expecting it to be less, but that's okay. I don't know if we're truly going to stay in this like recession type scare, but I do know a lot of people are going to lay off a lot of employees, and that is going to cause, the GDP to slip, I believe. So we'll see. I'm going to lean towards the technicals more than anything this week, I believe. Flash service PMI might hit the market a little, so we'll have to watch for that 8:45 news on Tuesday. But everything else is really the CAD, the AUD, GDP, GBP. We don't really mess with those at those times, at least, right? So let's get into it. Now, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to start utilizing the TradingView applications, right? The split screen here. We got the 1 hour on the top left, the 4 hour on the top right. We got the daily on the bottom left and the weekly on the bottom right. And I have the volume profiles for each of these a little bit differently. So right here on the hourly chart, you'll be able to see every single daily profile. So this square is this daily profile. So let's just use this one as an example. You can see that there was a lot of volume here on this day, right? But the most volume was here at this red line. That's how you want to look at this, basically. And when there's a red line that is left open, that hasn't been touched, those are really important areas, just like this. So this red line has not been touched. This is just a volume area that's really important. And you see price almost came into it, but it hasn't quite yet. Then on the 4 hour, it's going to give us a whole week's worth of volume profile. So this is all of last week. The market has not opened yet. So that's all of last week. Week before, right? And you can see this basically was the highest traded price of the week before. Last week, this was the highest traded price. Very cool. On the daily, we have the monthly profile. So it's going to give us the profile of the whole month of December. This is the whole month of November. And you can see how November it really dropped, but the majority of the volume sat right here. And you can read this as in, yes, the majority of the volume, of course, is going to be right here. This is where most of the trading was at, right? But some months are a little bit different than others. And you can see just the interesting areas, right? So here's an example of how it likes to come back into these open areas, right? The market was making higher highs and higher lows, and then it finally started to correct, and it sought this area. Is that a word? Sought? That's what I'm going to say. All right. So we are on the weekly over here now, and these are full years profiles. So this is all of 2022, and we've only had 3 weeks in 2023. Okay, so to me, it just helps me break down daily candles, number one. It helps me break down weekly candles, monthly candles, and yearly candles without having to look at those charts. And it gives me these high areas of volume. Okay, I also like to use the volume profile. I just don't want to confuse a whole bunch of people. We'll bring it out when it's necessary. Okay, so we're starting on the futures chart. And I like to look at the futures charts because the volume is just, to me, all volume is relative, right? You got to like figure out which broker you like, of course, but to me, I like using the futures chart for anything and everything I can related to volume. So we're using the futures chart. We're going to start on the weekly here, and you could see last week was kind of indecisive, right? We don't know what's really going on, but what we have seen is the past just, I don't know how many weeks, the market has technically made a lower low. And you can see this on the daily as well. The market, every time it kind of makes a move up, it'll end up crushing through that low, crushing through that low, crushing through that low. And right now, it's kind of going sideways. You can see that up here on the 1 hour, very sideways. I'm leaning towards it breaking lower, probably only because the structure hasn't shifted yet. So if the structure would just shift to the upside, I would be in big favor of the upside correction, bare minimum, because you can see on the daily, we have pretty good bullish divergence occurring. So let's make this there we go, bullish divergence. And you also see it on the 4 hour. So when you start stacking the divergences on multiple time frames, that's really when it starts to build a good case. And then on the 1 hour as well. So every time the market has made a new low, the momentum just hasn't been there. So what I want to see is the market make one more try at the lows. And if it does, I think that's an opportunity to catch a reversal. Or if the market does begin to break and create some bullish structure, then we have built somewhat of a case here on multiple time frames why the market could start to chill out to the downside and start to correct to the upside. All right, so what that would look like, let's go over to the bullish scenario. It's very simple. We just need this zone to break. Very simple. And why is it this zone? Because let's see, why is it not drawing on all of them? That's okay. What we'll do is we'll copy and we'll go over here and we'll paste. And it's this zone on the 4 hour, and it's the swing high. Very simple. And the market would likely get into this area up here, which is not only a weekly point of control. It's very close to this daily point of control. And it's pretty close. No, it's not. It's not very close to this one, but it's in a good area of volume. So I would like to see the dollar try to get into this area right here. Bare minimum, this area a little bit below it. And it's not going to mark that on this other chart. That's interesting. Okay. So if the dollar does begin to break up with some volume, we can try to anticipate it getting into more or less a level, let's say up here, basically into this next high. So we'll do the supply, but the volume is just below it. So how I'll play this is going to have to break. And I'm not a big trend line person at all. I do not really trade trends, but when I'm looking for the market to get somewhere and I can spot the divergence, if we get this move up, okay, well, then I'm going to look for a good correction and then another move into this area. All right. And then for the downside approach, I'm going to need to see it's going to have to come into here and make a big rejection move. Okay. If we can get that type of play, that'll give us spring, a Wyckoff spring, and we'll be able to take that up. But I'm probably not going to look for this to go to the downside, only because you can see that. And the only reason I like trend lines is to make a pattern. Okay. If I can't make somewhat of a pattern with it, I don't even care about the trend line. But this is kind of creating a falling wedge here. And I'm okay with that because this is a 1 hour falling wedge inside of a daily falling wedge. And so if I draw this here on the daily, you can see that this is making a big, huge reversal pattern. And if it does slide down to the bottom of this pattern, it'll be around here, which is where this 1 hour has this coming down into. So it would make a lot of sense to look for a reversal if price does catch down into this area. So how and where and why, other than just a pretty pattern, would I want to do this? I'm going to go over to like a daily or weekly and try to find a good area to the left. All right. So here we go. We have this low, and I'll mark it off as a, let me just put structure, or I'll put swing low. Okay. And then we have some volume right here. And this is March volume. So we're just going to put monthly POC. That's going to bug me if I don't change the text color. All right, cool. So these are basically these two areas right here. We've already tapped the swing low. So we can basically delete that. This is the price on the futures chart that I'm going to be waiting for the market to get to, or very close to it with some other confirmations. This is going to be like a crazy turnaround type spike. Let's see here. I'm going to check the 4 hour to see if there's anything else maybe right here. Yeah, there is a little. This would be weekly point of control. So we have a weekly point of control at 107. We've already hit that. So that's been hit. Or no, it hasn't. Here we go. 100. Why isn't it on this chart? I don't like how it's not putting it on all my charts, but that's okay. Two lines that we're looking for is basically 100.91 and 99.83. What I'll do is I'll mark those off on here since it's being stubborn. I don't know why it's doing that. That's cool. 915. Okay, that's right where I want. And then right here at 9983. That's way down here. So yeah, I don't care for the 9983 too much, to be honest. So this will be the first shot. And if this fails, it's going to go here. So I will look for sells if the market blasts through here, is most likely going to do something like that. Or some, you know what I'm saying? Search for this level. All right, so that's the dollar. I'm really waiting on it to do this or this, but if not, we're coming straight down, most likely. And then at that point, we'll have to assess, but that's a huge move for the dollar. That'd be a 1.87. That would be the move of the week. You know what I'm saying? It shouldn't move more than that if it, right? And I know that's kind of like a, if it does this and it does that type of analysis. I'm just more or less, what I'm trying to say is I'm waiting on the dollar. Let's go to, and we're not going to look at any of, I'm not going to look hard at any of the other currencies. I'm just going to take a glance at everything. Some good old Texas sweet tea. I'm going to take a glance at everything. And then I'm going to just kind of say what I think is going to happen real quick. All right. Or not what I think is going to happen, but just kind of what I'm seeing, right? We got the bearish divergence, but the weekly is still very much bullish, but you can see the slowdown here on the divergence. You can see the slowdown here on the 4-hour MACD as well. So even though the market is making higher highs, kind of in a chop, really, the momentum is just completely slowing down. Let's get everything looking real nice and somewhat clean. But yeah, daily still very bullish. We're waiting on somewhat of the structure to shift. It could be giving a little bit of Wyckoff distribution look. So if we get that spring or up thrust of distribution and then a sharp move down, that's telling us that the market wants to correct. And that would look like this. You'd really be able to see it on the 1 to 4 hour. It would be a sharp move up, breaking these highs, and then a sharp move right back down. And the structure that would need to flip, if it does create this type of structure on the 1 hour, where we get a move down right here to start the day or week, and then it begins to come up like this for London, and then New York, we get a pop. This would either be the structure that you want to look to flip, or this would be the structure. And it would look something like this. And we would take this to the downside, trying to catch this move, and then definitely trying to catch this move and bringing it down into these levels of imbalance that I've been waiting for the market to get back into for a long time. And then at that point, we'd have to assess, because that would be, like I said earlier, that'd be a big move to the downside. 3% for a currency is huge. So waiting for something like this really would be ultimate, you know, the actual Wyckoff upthrust. If it doesn't do that, okay, and it just sinks and breaks this structure, then technically it failed to make new highs and it made a new low. So we can look forward to turn around. You can see on the daily, the candles are exhausting. There is not a lot of volume here. The weekly candle last week did print indecision, so we could completely turn around right here. I'm waiting for the structure, though, is what I'm trying to say. It'll be the same thing for the pound. It is struggling a little bit, but no, I guess it's not actually. It put in a weekly bullish candle, breaking almost last couple weekly highs. So you might want to watch for the pound to continue to the upside. I'm not betting against it yet. There's not as much. I mean, there is divergence definitely, but it looks actually, it does look a little stronger than the euro. So it doesn't have that distribution pattern, right? So this one will be one where it has this like rising wedge look to it. And if it breaks through the trend of the rising wedge, you know, maybe that is an upthrust right here of the pattern. But if we do get this breakdown, that'll be an opportunity. But until then, this is probably going to keep grinding up. Where could it go to is the real question. There's a swing high right here ish. I want to find some volume on this. There we go. Wow, there is a clean shot up. So a lot of volume here. This is a weekly, monthly point of control. A lot of volume, and that's way too high. That would mean the dollar would just sink. So I don't really think that's our first area that we want to target. Most likely this little swing high right here. And let's take this, turn it to white or something. And that area is way more likely to be the first target area. I don't see any volume. I mean, yeah, here's a good look. So we can check this volume profile out of this year, of 2020, right? This is where the volume literally stops right there. The volume stops right here. And if the market doesn't stop right there, which is where this white line is, by the way, then it's smoothly going to this red line, which is where this area of volume is. So you can really see it really good on this yearly profile, how this is kind of GU's last resort here. There isn't a lot of volume in between where we are right now, so it probably will reach this area pretty quickly. And then once it gets there, we can assess, but I think it might blast straight through. So you gotta really watch, or maybe not blast through it because that rarely happens. Hit this correct and then make one more move straight through, eventually blasting through straight through it. So how we could play that, because it's making this move to 1 point, let's see, 265. I wish this would mark this off on everything. 1.265. All right. That's an interesting area. So we'll I'm gonna try to target this somehow. How would we really look for that? I would say, depending on how the dollar looks, because if the dollar starts to go bullish, this is not going to reach this area. But if this could make a pullback, another move right here down into this level, is there any volume? Yes. Okay, so this is what we're going to target. This price, which is 1 point, oof, that's still too low. It's a way too low, but that hasn't gotten tapped yet. That's where I'm going to wait for. So I'm going to wait for the pound to get into this level down here, way down here. But it's this yearly or this weekly, monthly point of control of January. So this month's point of control. Interesting area. And these are just areas we're waiting for it to get to and then slide up, or it's just going to bust through with all the buy stop type plays. And then once it gets here, we'll see what happens. Probably going to slide. AU, or the Aussie, I should say. It really almost came right into this weekly point of control, or yearly point of control on the weekly. So this has a chance to still move up a little bit. It doesn't have to tap that. Let's go to the daily, and it did print a nice bullish candle on the daily to end the week, and it is right above the monthly point of control. So that's a very bullish sign. Even though on the 4 hour, it has a beautiful bearish impulse with a nice correction. You can see on the 1 hour, very nice correction. It looks like a trade that I would normally take to the downside. So I'm going to be looking. This is tough because structure technically did shift a little bit. Okay, the structure here, it ranged out. It made this fake out, and then it broke through this range. Now, some people would say that this is the structure, and I don't disagree with them. Some people would even say this might be the structure, and I still don't disagree with them. But I look at structure as sideways areas or swing highs and swing lows. And so that's just a break of structure, in my opinion, with an impulse. Let's see if there's good volume with this. Not really. So that is not a good sign. You want to see big volume, but you do see big momentum. So if there is more volume on the pickup, I'm not going to take this trade or even trade idea, I guess. But you can see that the point of control that has not been hit on the week that it dropped really hard, or the day rather that it dropped really hard, has not been hit, and it's lining up with the 78.6. So you don't really ever know what the market's going to do, but these are kind of one of those things where it looks like I'm getting pocket aces, right? So I want to go ahead and look for the Aussie to come up into this area of volume and at least come back and tap into this untapped volume. At least. Here's another area where I would really like it to come down into. So let's see if this lines up. The price of the 4-hour untapped volume down here is 0.6787. 0.6787 is dang near right here. So this is lining up perfectly with our TP levels that we would like for it to extend down into. And 86787 is right there. So that would give a 1 to 6 risk reward. And then if we're looking at the exact leg right here, if it did hit this level and turn around, that's giving a good leg down. I would expect it to come down a little more to hit that volume right there. That's just chilling. So that looks really clean. I'll take this trade no matter what, pretty much. And if it's an L, it's an L, but it's lining up pretty clean. If the dollar does make a move down first, a big move down first, then this is definitely not going to play out. But we'll see. Let's see. Right here's a lot of volume. And I want to come over here to see if there is a little bit right here, I guess, that hasn't been hit. Well, it did hit the next week. I'm just looking at areas where this could go to get me before. So probably just up into there. That's fine. All right, let's see the next. We got the Swiss, and the Swiss on the weekly is showing exhaustion. So this week will be expecting this to possibly turn around. We got some good exhaustion on the weekly in an area where it has definitely fallen before. It looks like it pierced last year's high and then fell right back into like a range. So I'll really be watching how this structure plays out, because since it did break last year's high barely, and this would be this break right here on the 1 hour, just this, and then it sunk right back in. So what we'll be watching for is if it does break this high again, the market is probably going to rally and then do like a crash down, because that's kind of what happens when you're in a rising wedge, which this is the cleanest one out of all of them so far. Okay. Out of all the wedge patterns, I think this one's the cleanest. Just damn near perfect. Tap that top. And yeah, I mean, this is too textbook. So I'm not a huge fan on patterns, but this is pretty clean. And you got daily divergence. Yes. So, this one's kind of picture perfect, bearish divergence. The weekly is, giving the price action pattern that we want to see. So we come into the lower time frames. Now, here's the daily, and we're getting a reversal pattern on the daily. We want to see price break structure though. So here's the main structure on the daily that really needs to break for this to actually reverse. So way down here is really the main structure that needs to break. That's a long ways away. And that could hold as demand even. But if this area right here breaks, which is this month's point of control, I'll mark this off. Should be right here. Then I do believe we're going to come down into this area pretty quickly, just because this would be looking like a stop hunt and then a move down. So I'm going to have to watch this, but when it does break down, we'll be able to really anticipate a big move to the downside, which should ultimately mean the dollar's moving to the upside. So if those both break, we're good. Okay, so if we get a break here, which is this falling or rising wedge, if we get a break of the volume and a break of structure, that's a ton of confirmations for us to take this to the downside. So it doesn't matter what it does before. It could go sideways, up, down, whatever. But when it breaks through here, that's one confirmation. That's the second confirmation. This will be the third confirmation. And if we get all three of those, we should look for this to continue to the downside. Into bare minimum, these levels of structure here, you get some volume coming up right here. You get a lot of volume down in here for the year. So this will be kind of a nice level. And then once it does make this retracement, we might look for it to move up again. So that's another interesting thing. I don't know. It's not going to get there this week, I don't think, at all. That's a lot of movement, way too much. Actually, let's see. Yeah. So that won't get there this week at all. But I mean, if it does one of these moves, maybe, I doubt that. When it does this correction, we'll be looking for an area down here to buy from. All right. The yen, the weekly candle, a little bearish. So this is what I like to see. You know, the yen and the Swiss, which are, you know, the safe haven ones, they're looking kind of bearish versus the dollar's kind of looking for the dollar to turn around. And I would like to see these start to lead the way and kind of give me that direction, no bias, but it's not yet confirmed. This has been making higher highs for weeks now. We don't want to just jump into a short yet. The MACD is given the bearish divergence. The bearish divergence is everywhere. So we're waiting for structures to shift on the yen. Once that happens, it's the same thing as the Swiss, right? It's in this huge rising wedge, or at this point, it's just in a uptrend. You know, forget a rising wedge. This is just in a ridiculous uptrend. And is it foolish for me to want to take it to the downside, even thinking about it? Maybe, right? Maybe that's not the smartest play, because let's see if there's any volume above us versus below us. I see this area down here. Let me see this profile. Yes, same area. So I see this volume to the downside, and to the upside is like there is nothing, which means it could just slip. It could just continue to go up. By no means am I saying that it won't, but it has this reversal look to it. And eventually the trend isn't your friend anymore. So that's why I'm waiting for this to reverse. But what would give me a signal to buy it? Let me think. Because technically right now, you know, it's in this area. And if it breaks any lower, it's going to probably be in a double bottom situation. I don't like to buy double bottoms. So yeah, I'll probably just wait for it to break. And then if it doesn't switch structures, then I get caught in one of these fake outs and then a big move up, whatever. Gold. Let's delete everything that we have here. Remove drawings. And let's look here on the weekly, because this is important. We're in an interesting area on the weekly. Last week, it didn't make a big move. So we have this high to this low and is sitting in some interesting fib levels. Interesting discounted pricing, no doubt. You see the 61.8 is really good weekly structure. So I don't have to draw anything else over here. If price gets below this weekly 61.8, I think we're going to see a big move to the downside. And it's kind of like everything is diverging and we're kind of just waiting on the dollar to move. And I'm not trying to catch the big move to the downside. I'm just looking at a confirmation area to see if I can catch a lower time frame extension move. Okay, so like right here on the 4-hour, you can see how it's been making these higher highs. Going against the market isn't smart. I'll be the first one to tell you all that. But my system also tells me to not buy into it when we're making these divergent moves. Now, one thing I will say is if it's at this 50 EMA, which it almost is, it kind of makes the divergence invalid. So we can either wait for the 50 EMA to break and then we can look for downside plays into, not even that far actually, because we have so much volume sitting. Even last year's volume is at in an interesting area. So let me mark that off at, let's see. It's like 1820. So 1820, I'm going to mark this off. Over here, boom. Okay, 1820 is basically this area. If price gets into this ever this week, I'm bullish. That's an interesting spot. So we'll be watching that. 1880 is another interesting area. Sheesh. This is this month's point of control. So 1880. All right. And then we have another interesting price of last week's point of control, which is right here. All right. So a lot of areas to me that if gold gets to, I'll kind of might look for bullet buys. But if it starts to break through structures, then we'll know, okay, let's look for sells. Because it's still making bullish moves, right? Even though there is some divergence, it's still making bullish moves. There's no reason yet to sell. And there are areas of volume that we can definitely buy from. So I'm going to be watching these, seeing if gold wants to respect these or not. This move would look something kind of like this, right into the 78.6 and the volume, and then looking for an extension play up into the negative 61.8, which would be almost this 78.6 right here. So good look on gold coming up, I think. And then silver, to confirm with that upside play possibility, I don't love it because this is actually, you can see the rejection to the downside. Rather, it's in a range though. So there's some bearish divergence inside this range. If silver's kind of been leading the way actually with gold, it's been giving me some like insight on what gold's going to do. So I'll have to just watch. If we see silver start to pop out here, then we'll definitely know what's up. But if this starts to fall with some swiftness and break through here, we're probably coming all the way down into these lows down here, which would make gold continue to tank, or not continue to tank, but start to tank and make my analysis invalid. But we'll see what happens. Oil. I don't really trade oil, but looking at this on the weekly, it put in a nice weekly candle. We're putting like a W right here on the daily with a nice higher low. So that's good. If we make a higher high, which it's starting to almost already, price is most likely going to flip. It has a nice bearish opportunity on the 1 hour, but I'm not going to take that. But this little impulse, bam, 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 little possible correction. If it does correct, that's what we want to look at, I think. So if it can correct into like a daily fib level, which is also this year's point of control, then we'll be looking for this to move to the upside, most likely into this next level. That's an easy one. Okay, the VIX is gotcha. Okay, the VIX is not going to give me all the time frames that I want to use, but I'm going to say that if it doesn't hold the low that it made last week, which is right here, and here's a higher time frame look, if it doesn't hold this, we're coming down big time. If that happens, the indices are going to make rocket ship moves, and so are the cryptos. So that's something to point out. Okay, we need to put this back on the 1 hour. This needs to go back on the 4 hour. This is the daily, and that's the weekly. Okay, so now we are on the S&Ps, and man, they are right in an interesting area. But let's look at the volume and the price action. Because on the weekly, it rejected the yearly point of control and last year's point of control as well. So it's in the year before's point of control. So guys, this thing is in just a crazy area right now, in my opinion. And it most likely is going to win. The bulls are most likely going to win because it's just how ridiculous this market is. And every time, I would say 7 out of 10 times the bulls usually win in the S&P. We have this trend line that is most likely going to get violated this week. If it doesn't, well, hey, we know the direction is to the downside, genuinely. But with the volume holding like this, it needs to break under all this volume and break under a structure, daily structure. So here is the structure that really needs to break. And in fact, if it just puts in a lower high and breaks this structure, we can almost be excited for this to drop regardless. But it's at a very tricky spot, very, very tricky spot because we could see a breakout, but then we also have areas where it could still turn around at. So let's look at some of the other ones to see what they look like to correlate these markets. We have the NASDAQ, which is looking a lot more bullish to me. It's already almost past this high. And there's definitely volume with that move. Let's go to the daily and see. No, not much, but more than I would say average. Weekly volume last week was not much. Not much. But yeah, I'm not just going to short this right here, even though it is in the area where I would like to short it from. There's no confirmations. The momentum is screaming right now. So we'll wait. We'll wait. We're going to look at the Dow now. And the Dow is giving more of the downside vibes. So let's look at the Dow. Let's remove drawings. And you can see this weekly candle is a bearish engulfing candle on the weekly versus these weekly candles, right? We do have a little bearish candle here, but this bottom wick, NASDAQ has no bearishness to it really. And then the Dow with the bearish move. So that's interesting. No volume with it really. So that sucks. We're going to go to the daily over here and kind of look at this range that it's in. Out of all of them, though, this has been the most bullish. I know last week it wasn't, but it has been the most bullish. Maybe it is leading the way, showing that we are about to drop. That could be possible. But what we're going to wait on is structure to break to the downside or a better volume area. And to me, you can kind of see this is looking really clean. We'll bring out this fib from this structure, and this is like what we want to see happen on the indices. Okay, it's like the Dow rolled over just way sooner. You can see this spike up and then this big drop. The Dow came into this area and dropped heavy last week. This is the weekly profile. You can see on the NASDAQ, the weekly profile is nothing like that. Weekly profile is a little bit like that, but the Dow came all the way back into the bottom of the range. These are not even close to the bottom of this range, not even close to the bottom of this range. So I'm looking more at either the Dow gave the best entry to buy last week, or it's gonna give a pretty good opportunity to sell this week. All right, so we're either waiting for it to come up into here, short at these highs or fib levels rather. And then this is also an area where there's some volume. So you can see this area right here, a lot of volume. I'll mark it more like that. A lot of volume in right there at the 34,000 area. So that'll be an area where we look for shorts, definitely. And I like the way this looks more. If I was a risky trader, when the market opens, I might look for shorts on the NASDAQ or the S&P or NASDAQ. And if it does do a move down, we might need to look for buys, because I'm not super convinced on the downside for these. I'm a lot more convinced of the downside for this, but it still needs to correct a lot. So I would even be interested in this, right? Because I'm pretty bullish on these guys. If at least for a correction. Okay, let's look at the cryptos. Bond market real quick. They could start popping off soon. They've got some divergence here. Daily, it needs to start to break up. Let me go to the next one. Oh yeah, 10-year looking like it could start to move again. Interesting. So if these start to move again, that's going to do a lot of damage to the stock market. A lot of damage to the stock market. So we'll watch for these. We'll watch for this. If these correlate with the stock market dropping, with the Dow really dropping, because you can see this moved up, kind of the same speed as the Dow moved down. If this gets into this area and the Dow's in an interesting area, we might just have to do something about that. And then also you can see these lows here and these lows here have been broken. So this definitely could continue, but if we get a break of structure, we definitely know what's good, how that was a kind of a reaccumulation area, and we'll be looking for this to move up and the indices down. So waiting for these macro confirmations is really, really key in your risk management as well. Okay, Bitcoin. I don't really want to be on the futures chart because it's going to gap up, but that's fine. We're going to stay on it. I just know that it has done a lot more price action than this. So we're going to see another huge gap on Bitcoin when it opens. Wow. Okay. So that is going to be interesting. This is very interesting price action that we're getting on Bitcoin. The volume on the weekly is starting to pick up a little bit. The momentum definitely there. Right here, you can see the daily momentum we haven't had this momentum on the daily since, yeah, it's relative, right? It's a lot more than what we have had recently, I would say. The momentum is starting to break highs versus the structure. So, but the structure is starting to break, and we do know that these structures they do get broken, and price is going to open up a lot higher. I'm very interested to see if this might be the start of a rally like this. If the dollar continues to tank, then we could see this rally up. But what I believe the timing is that the dollar has already dropped a good amount and Bitcoin hasn't really done its big move yet. Like if you were waiting for the dollar to hit a certain supply level and then for Bitcoin to make a move, that move did not happen. So you're seeing a little bit now, and I think this is a fake move still. I could be in disbelief still. This could be the disbelief rally. And I could miss out on some moves, but I'm seeing still a possibility for the dollar, number one, to make at least double top highs, maybe even one more move to the all-time highs. I see the indices making one more move down. I see companies laying people off. I don't think even if inflation has gotten better, nothing really has gotten better. Everything is still so expensive. Everything is still like people are still crunching. So we are still in a recessionary state. I just think the greedy stock market people might pump the market one more time first, but that is, I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, for now, Bitcoin, do not try to sell it, even though I'm saying like I don't think it's mooning. I wouldn't try to sell it yet by any means. Once it makes the correction down, it'll probably be just as fast as this move up, though. So remember that the correction down probably going to be just as fast as the move to the upside. But yeah, you can see how it was just booming. We did take a sell on this to the group and just got wrecked on it, right? Just straight through our stop. And that's okay. That happens sometimes. But there was really not that many confirmations for the trade, to be honest. It started to just kind of move into an area where we had a limit order set for a long time, kind of right here in this volume area. And right as it hit it just says, see ya. And then we know that it's kind of up in this 24K area now. There's definitely some bearish divergence, but like I said, it doesn't mean anything. When a market does start to move straight up like this, divergence gets beat a lot. It really does. Nothing is 100%. So keep that in mind as well. Let's look at Ethereum, which is basically the same thing, but I think Ethereum's volume looks a lot better. The volume here is starting to pick up every candle, and this is moving up. So, I'll know Ethereum is kind of my pick for the next cycle. I'm interested to see if Ethereum wants to do something sooner than Bitcoin. It definitely has like this little breakout to it. If we're going to do it like from the top down, definitely breakout to it. I don't know. If Ethereum, and here's how I said it last time, it just didn't quite happen. If Bitcoin makes new lows and Ethereum doesn't, that's the best buying opportunity. And I said that a bunch of times right here, and we just didn't quite. I mean, I put a little in November, not as much as I thought, because to me, it looked like it was going to make one more move down with the volume picking up on this move, but it just held, and now we're up here. So that was a nice little move, 50%. It could continue. So what I'm going to do with Ethereum is going to be the one that I'm going to look to hold versus Bitcoin. So Bitcoin might be the one that takes off, but I'm going to look for Ethereum to be that one for me. And let me measure these links of the last little leg it's made. Okay, that was a 40% move. And then Ethereum here, 41. So very similar stuff. That's good. Okay, so this week, really waiting on the dollar. We got XRP here. I don't want to look at XRP really. It's kind of just in a range. If it breaks out, it's going up to damn near 50 cents. But really, the dollar is what we're waiting on this week. If it comes down into these areas of volume, we're going to smash. Okay. If it breaks out and goes to the upside, we're really going to take advantage. This week really, we're going to look at EU on the channel. So let's go just look at EU, even though it's genuinely the opposite of the dollar. This week, what we're going to look at for EU on the weekly, you can see it has made some indecision last week, but the week before, very bullish, and everything else is pretty damn bullish. So to try to call the reversal is not happening unless we break last week's low. So we can mark this low off, which is basically this range. All right. So on the 1 hour, I like marking everything off on the 1 hour. If we break below here, we can look for a move to the downside. And really, this would be the area of imbalance that we would want to see price get back into. And it's actually last year's point of control. Even though it has been tapped barely, I think that it still has some room to get into. And let's see, even down in here would be a good move. But this is the first area of imbalance that we'll be looking at EU to get into. If it can get into this area, we might have to look for buys because of how bullish it is, right? But if it does break down this, then wow, this is looking like it could tank. So we'll be waiting for that. Now, to the upside, since it is so bullish, right? How are we going to play the upside? Well, we're not. Reason why is because the divergence is too present. So we have too much divergence. We have divergence on the 4 hour. We have divergence on the daily. And we have divergence on the 1 hour with somewhat of a Wyckoff distribution. Okay. And we can look that up if we want. Let's go here. No, let's not. Either way, this is definitely somewhat of a Wyckoff distribution look to it with divergence. So how we're going to play it if it does make a move up. I like to use somewhat of a divergence fib here. And this is kind of my own little sauce, right? So this would be an area where I would look for it to turn around possibly. And then it would need to look something like this, a big move up and then a sharp move down. If we can get this exact signature, then we can look for price to make a move down into these levels for this week. Now, if it does not do this and it just continues to ride up, that's a tough decision because of the divergence. I don't want to get into the divergence too heavy, right? But this area, I guess, would be the next area that we would look for price to get into. Let's see if we can find a volume spot on the 4 hour here. Boom. So that's a good ways away still. So we won't be looking for that. We'll be looking for this. That's not there. Probably just this level. I mean, we're too close to anything to really look for buys. We're too close to anything to look for buys. So we'll be looking for corrections more than anything back into that area, if not 1.1161, which is very far away. Very, very far away. So we're not even looking at that at all. This is definitely the area and that's held, but we're going to be looking to target, yeah, this green area basically, and then a correction. So that's it. I appreciate y'all for coming on. Y'all have a good one. Take care.